Welcome back to Global Eye. Today we're covering a story that has divided America and sparked one of the most controversial debates about presidential power in modern history. On Monday, October 20th, 2025, demolition crews began tearing down part of the White House East Wing to make way for President Donald Trump's most ambitious and polarizing project yet, a massive luxury ballroom estimated to cost between $200 and $250 million. The images that emerged from Washington showed construction equipment ripping into the facade of one of America's most iconic buildings, with windows and building materials scattered across the ground like debris from a natural disaster. Trump had previously pledged that construction of the ballroom wouldn't interfere with the existing White House structure, but that turned out not to be the case. The National Trust for Historic Preservation has called on the administration to pause the demolition until plans can go through proper review channels. Presidential historian Douglas Brinkley compared watching the demolition to slashing a Rembrandt painting. But Trump supporters see this as a symbol of American strength and a long overdue upgrade. If you're new here, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let's break down everything you need to know about Trump's controversial White House ballroom. On Monday morning, October 20th, 2025, the White House began tearing down part of the East Wing. Despite lacking approval for construction from the federal agency that oversees such projects, the images were startling and unprecedented. Dramatic photos showed construction equipment tearing into the East Wing facade with windows and other building parts in tatters on the ground. Reporters watching from a park near the Treasury Department witnessed history being literally demolished before their eyes. Trump announced the start of construction in a social media post and referenced the work while hosting the 2025 college baseball champions in the East Room, standing in one of the White House's most historic rooms with demolition happening directly behind the walls. Trump told the assembled athletes and guests that people had wanted a ballroom for 150 years, and he was giving that honor to this wonderful place. He noted that there was a lot of construction going on right behind them, which they might hear periodically. The timing was almost theatrical. Trump told the group it just started today and noted there would be a knockout panel behind where he delivered remarks that would go into the new ballroom. What made the demolition particularly shocking was the scale of what's being built. The ballroom will be a massive 90,000 square feet with glass walls, representing the biggest structural change to the executive mansion since the addition of the Truman balcony in 1948, even dwarfing the residence itself at 55,000 square feet. This isn't a minor renovation. This is fundamentally altering the profile and appearance of one of the most recognizable buildings in the world. Here's where this story gets particularly controversial. Trump and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said over the summer that the White House itself would remain intact as the ballroom was going up, with Trump saying it would be near it but not touching it, and Leavitt adding that nothing would be torn down. That turned out not to be the case, with the White House later explaining that some demolition was needed because the East Wing is being modernized as part of the ballroom project. This wasn't just a minor clarification. This was a fundamental change from what the American public was told would happen. The East Wings would paneled. Foyer has long been the main point of entry for visitors attending social events at the White House, as well as those going on tours of the building, and the section emerged in its current form in 1942 for over 80 years. This has been how America welcomes guests to the People's House now. It's being demolished to make room for a massive ballroom that, critics say, looks more like something from Trump's private Mar-a-Lago estate than a public building representing democratic values. The regulatory situation is equally troubling to critics. While Trump announced months ago his plans to replace the East Wing with the new ballroom, the demolition appears to have proceeded without an extensive public review process. The National Capital Planning Commission chairman, Will Sch, who is also the White House staff secretary and one of Trump's top aides, said at the commission's September meeting that the agency does not have jurisdiction over demolition or site preparation work, stating what they deal with is essentially construction. This creates a convenient loophole. The administration can demolish the East Wing without approval, and by the time the commission reviews the actual construction of the ballroom, it will be too late to stop the project. During a recent dinner with high-dollar ballroom donors, Trump said he was told there were 0 zoning conditions set for the project, recalling that he was told he could start tonight with no approvals needed. But this is the White House, and as president, he can do anything he wants. So what exactly is Trump building, and why does he believe it's necessary? The plans call for an addition of approximately 90,000 total square feet with a seated capacity of 650 people. To put that in perspective, the East Room, currently the largest room in the White House, has an approximately 200-person capacity. Trump is building something more than 3 times larger. Trump said last week that the ballroom will fit 999 people, which suggests the capacity might be even larger when including standing room. Renderings provided by the White House depict a vast space with gold and crystal chandeliers, gilded Corinthian columns, a coffered ceiling with gold inlays, and gold floor lamps. The aesthetic is unmistakably Trumpian, luxurious and ornate in a way that reflects the design sensibility of his hotels and private clubs. Trump insists that presidents have desired such a ballroom for 150 years and that he's adding the massive glass, walled space because the East Room is too small, also stating he does not like the idea of hosting kings, queens, presidents and prime ministers in pavilions on the South Lawn at the donor dinner. Trump said the new space would be in keeping with the White House architecture, appropriate in color and in window shape. He's positioning this as a respectful addition that honors the existing architecture, though critics strongly disagree. The project is estimated to cost around $250 million, though other reports place it at $200 million. Trump said in a social media announcement that the project would be completed with zero cost to the American taxpayer, stating the White House ballroom is being privately funded by many generous patriots, great American companies, and himself. The White House has said it will disclose information on who has contributed money to build the ballroom, but has yet to do so. This lack of transparency raises obvious questions about conflicts of interest and what access or influence these wealthy donors might expect in return. At last week's event, Trump said the head of Carrier Global Corporation had offered to donate the air conditioning system for the ballroom, which Carrier confirmed, though a cost estimate was not immediately available. The reaction from America's historic preservation community has been swift and severe. The National Trust for Historic Preservation on Tuesday urged the Trump administration to pause demolition of the White House East Wing, as work continued Tuesday with excavators tearing further into the building. The sounds of rhythmic pounding and occasional crashing drifted across the 18-acre White House campus. Trump's reaction reveals his mindset. While having lunch with Republican senators in the Rose Garden, Trump told them to listen to that sound, calling it music to his ears. For Trump, the destruction of the existing East Wing is a source of satisfaction and pride, the sound of American greatness being restored. But for preservationists, those sounds represent something entirely different. The National Trust respectfully urged the administration to pause demolition until plans for the proposed ballroom go through the legally required public review processes, including consultation and review by the National Capital Planning Commission and the Commission of Fine Arts. And to invite comment from the public, the National Trust expressed deep concern that the massing and height of the proposed new construction will overwhelm the White House itself, given that it is 55,000 square feet and may also permanently disrupt the carefully balanced classical design of the White House. With its 2 smaller and lower east and west wings, the architectural concern isn't just aesthetic. It's about proportion, balance, and the symbolic meaning of the White House as a building that represents democratic ideals rather than imperial grandeur. The 2 commissions have in the past reviewed proposed additions to the White House, including changes to the perimeter fence and construction of a new tennis pavilion within the past decade. The fact that this much larger and more significant project is proceeding without that same level of review strikes many observers as deeply troubling. Critics see this as a deliberate strategy: tear down the building first, present the construction plans later, and make it impossible for anyone to stop the project once the demolition is complete. But not everyone sees this project as an assault on American heritage. Trump's supporters view the ballroom as long overdue recognition of America's status as the world's leading superpower. They argue that the White House, as currently configured, is inadequate for hosting the large-scale diplomatic and ceremonial events that a president needs to conduct. They point out that other world powers have grand palaces and staterooms that dwarf anything the United States currently has. The supporter argument goes like this: Why should the President of the United States have to host foreign leaders in temporary pavilions on the lawn or in a room that only holds 200 people? Why shouldn't America have a ballroom that can accommodate 650 or even 999 people for state dinners and diplomatic receptions? And if private donors are willing to pay for it, why should preservationists stand in the way? They also point to the long history of White House renovations and expansions. The building has been rebuilt, expanded, and renovated numerous times throughout its history. The West Wing didn't even exist in its current form until Theodore Roosevelt's presidency. The East Wing was added during World War II. The Truman balcony was controversial at the time. From this perspective, Trump is simply continuing a tradition of presidents adapting the White House to meet the needs of their era. Also, reject the notion that Trump is desecrating the White House. They point out that he was elected by the American people, and that, as president, he has the authority to maintain and improve federal buildings. They argue that the preservationist community is politically motivated and would celebrate this same project if a Democratic president were undertaking it. From the supporter perspective, Trump's ballroom represents a new era of American confidence and strength, a rejection of the idea that America should be modest about its power, and a tangible legacy that will host world leaders for generations to come, regardless of whether you support or oppose the ballroom itself. Serious questions remain about the process, the funding, and the potential for corruption or undue influence. The White House has said it will disclose information on who has contributed money, but has yet to do so. Who are these generous patriots and great American companies that Trump referenced? What do they expect in return for contributing millions of dollars to the president's pet project? Will they receive special access to the White House or have their policy preferences receive more favorable consideration? The Treasury Department told employees not to share images of the White House demolition, which raises additional transparency concerns. If this is a project that Trump and his supporters are proud of, why are government employees being instructed not to document and share it? The attempt to control the narrative suggests an awareness that the optics of demolishing the White House are problematic. There's also the question of precedent. If Trump can unilaterally decide to demolish part of the White House and add a massive ballroom without extensive public review, what's to stop future presidents from making similar alterations based on personal preferences? The White House belongs to the American people, not to any individual president. It's a symbol of American democracy and continuity. The concern isn't just about this particular ballroom, it's about establishing norms that protect this irreplaceable national treasure from impulsive alterations by any president. The administration's goal is to complete the ballroom before Trump's second term wraps in 2029, which means construction will continue throughout his presidency. The clearing of trees on the south grounds and other site preparation work started in September. So this project has actually been underway for weeks before the dramatic demolition began. The images of the White House being torn apart have sparked intense debate across America and around the world. Some see ambition and American greatness. Others see vandalism and authoritarian excess. Some see a practical solution to a real problem. Others see an ego project that prioritizes luxury over historical preservation. One thing is certain: this ballroom will be Trump's most visible and permanent legacy. Long after his policies have been implemented or reversed, this physical structure will remain. Future presidents will use it. Future historians will write about it. Whether that's Trump's gift to future generations or an expensive mistake will be debated for decades to come. The National Trust is not the only group to call for more rigorous review. And legal challenges are possible, though once a building has been demolished, it's nearly impossible to reverse course. With Trump's staff secretary serving as chairman of the National Capital Planning Commission and the president expressing confidence that he has the authority to proceed without approvals, it seems unlikely that any external force will halt the construction. The story of Trump's White House ballroom is still being written. It's a story about power, legacy, heritage, and what the presidency should represent in 21st century America. It's a story that reveals deep divisions in how Americans understand their history and their values. And it's a story that will literally reshape the most recognizable building in American government for generations to come. Trump's demolition of the White House East Wing to build a $250 million luxury ballroom represents one of the most controversial presidential projects in modern American history, Douglas Brinkley compared it to slashing a Rembrandt painting, while Trump called the sound of demolition music to his ears. This divide captures the fundamental disagreement about what this project represents. Is this an overdue upgrade that will allow the United States to properly host world leaders? Or is it an assault on American heritage that prioritizes luxury and ego over historical preservation? The answer probably depends on your broader views about Trump, presidential power, and what the White House should represent. What's your take? Is this a necessary modernization or an unforgivable alteration? Should presidents have the authority to make major changes to the White House without extensive public review? And what about the private funding model and lack of transparency about donors? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If you found this informative, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more coverage of this developing story. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching.